Kevin Durant, again, 35 points. But at one point, look at this. They started chirping each other. Hey, they're not talking about winning gold medals right here. You know what I'm saying?
Why are you talking crazy, LeBron was saying? Why are you talking crazy?
Kevin's got a little bit more of an edge now than he used to have, and I think especially in this finals because he wants his first ring. And even if it means going through or getting in the face of LeBron, he'll do that.
He was the most animated warrior by a lot.
Yeah, he really was
the most energized warrior
in.
by a lot. And I don't think anybody else on that team necessarily looked locked in.
Well, let's face it, he wants it more than anybody else. Because he got one, he needs it. He got one. And if people say, I miss 80s basketball, this was 1980s basketball. You got a lot of points. You had chirping. You had physical play. You had guys clubbing each other. You had bully basketball.
And it was fun.
It was totally fun.
Guess who else was chirping and doesn't have his first ring? Zaza. Zaza was upset.
We got
to talk about that.
How's your father?
Is Zaza going to be suspended?
No.
I think not.
There was a punch to the
They get a flagrant now. They may add a flagrant in.
But you don't think he'll be
got was a
suspended?
tech.
Here it is. Okay, so they're wrestling. 4 guys go around with him. And now he's wrestling, and he and Amon get in there. And it looked at first like he was just ripping his arm out here.
First one.
That second one.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
he thinks the counter punch might have been a little.
Well, the second one did get in the knee, but this one right there, there was, and that's what LeBron's saying. He's saying, because LeBron saw it right there. He saw contact. And he kind of went to the ref and kind of did the old hand
And LeBron
gesture.
has personal experience in that.
Yes, exactly, right. And that's, that with his recall, he thought that's a Draymond situation.
Well, Draymond told him he disrespected him. He stood over him. You can't do that to a man.
You guys are awfully certain that he's not going to be suspended for Game 5. I am not so certain.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
I think he just gets a flagrant, though, Mike.
You just think it'll be a flagrant, PJ? You don't think they'll say that was a punch?
But the other big story both coaches were asked in their news conference was that when Draymond Green got the technical, and our first half box score had said Draymond Green technical. I assume the referee, they asked, who's the technical on? Draymond Green. Okay, we'll type that in our official stat sheet piece of paper.
Which they did.
And then suddenly Draymond gets teed up, and the referees had a moment to kind of look it over, and they probably realized, Draymond already had one.
Well, you see the clip? There's a clip that shows definitively the technical foul in the first half.
Right,
the
right there.
Foul right there is called on Draymond. But he walks right towards Steve Kerr and gives him the technical.
Right here.
Right there.
But Kerr,
right there.
But Kerr shouldn't get a technical for that.
But apparently he did. It was assessed to Kerr.
But it was
what they wrote down officially is another thing.
Yeah, at this point we think, and then Draymond thinks he has 2 technicals. He thought the first one was on him because how he reacts. He can't believe he got teed up there.
Did you see Klay Thompson's reaction?
He knows that's 2.
Klay thought
everyone knew it was 2.
Well, Steve said, "Are you out?" to Draymond.
Yep.
And Klay Thompson has his hands on his head to say, "Oh my God,
he's
Draymond's
gone
out of this thing."
Everyone in the league,
they thought it was 2.
Yeah, and it was on the stat sheet. The players knew that first one was on Green, but somehow it got changed, John. Within about 10 seconds.
The referee insists that when he went and did the bookkeeping, he was explaining that the personal foul was on Draymond, and that somehow the Kerr didn't get booked. Perhaps, like Brian Williams, we conflated the 2, and then we had a problem. And what happened? Our referee, our officiating expert, Steve Javie, here's what he saw.
Mm-hmm. Tonight's game, we had a little bit of confusion, and maybe I should say a little miscommunication between the referees and the scores table. In the first half, a foul was called on Draymond Green. A subsequent technical foul was called on that same play. The table thinking that it was on Draymond Green, but actually it was on Steve Kerr. Now we have another technical foul called in the second half, this one on Draymond Green. Everybody in the building and the scores table thought this was the second foul, technical foul on Draymond Green, which would make it an automatic ejection. The officials then got together and said, no, the first technical foul was on Steve Kerr. Definite confusion there, but I know when I watched the play in the first half, when the foul was called on Draymond Green, I saw the official calling the play, called a loose ball foul on Draymond Green, and then Steve Kerr jumping off the bench, running at the official. This is where I felt at the first half, the technical foul was on Steve Kerr. Therefore, the technical foul on Draymond Green in the second half was only his first one, and he was allowed to stay in the game.
Are we buying that?
Yeah, I
buy it.
Well, here, the problem is they said Draymond Green. I think they announced Draymond Green in the building.
Right.
And that's the way it said. I called Joe Borgia at halftime, vice president officials, and I said, Joe, at halftime, are the officials supposed to look at the score and see who the flagrants were on, who the technicals? He said, no, it's the scores table. And it's important, I think, to note, scores table in the playoffs, it's not a Cleveland scores table. They bring in neutral people. They bring in people from the other teams in the league not involved. So it's not like home court, put it on somebody.
PJ, you've been in this situation. Steve Kerr running. I mean, he didn't charge him.
He
This
said
wasn't
what?
like, you know, Earl Weaver going at the home plate umpire. Was that enough to give Steve Kerr a tech?
Borderline, but I tell you, I thought John Goble, when you run at an official, they don't like that. I thought John Goble clearly, when he made the call, was looking right at Steve.
He was.
I mean, it wasn't like he had already bent down to pick the ball up, and he came up. If he was going to call it on Draymond, the damage was already done. He'd have called it right away. I thought, watching the replay, he intended to call it on Steve.
Although you heard Steve Kerr in his news conference, Steve Kerr thought it was on Draymond Green. He didn't think it was on him until the end, in which case he lobbied it.
He's also at halftime looking at his stat sheet, and they're saying, hey, you know, he's got one. I mean, believe me, they've had the conversation about Draymond before. He's got one already. So.
Because if there was a question, they would, if they saw it on the stat, and these guys look at stat sheets, they would have gone to the scorer's table and say, wait a minute.
Are you sure?
Is that technical on Draymond or me?
If Steve thought it was on him, which he clearly didn't,
did not, right.
They would have come out and said, hey, they got this wrong. It wasn't the technical
how about
on
Mike
me.
Brown? Mike Brown
got
really
all up in his
into
kitchen.
Draymond, thinking that Draymond had got himself tossed from this game.
Yep.
Guess what? He should have been upset, and he could have gotten tossed from the game.